Hello and welcome back to Bombchu News. My name is Andrew, I'm joined by Chris, and we'll be covering the news that we found interesting today. In Nintendo news, the company was sitting pretty as they proudly announced their top spot on the NPD hardware sales for October 2017. According to their press release, of the slightly over 1 million US hardware units sold, both the Nintendo Switch and SNES Classic Edition found themselves at the number 1 and number 2 spots respectively. The House of Mario also reported that when combined with their sales of the 3DS family of systems, Nintendo consoles made up 2/3 of that massive total. As far as software sales for October go, Middle-earth Shadow of War was number 1 when counting both physical and digital sales. However, Nintendo wanted to let everyone know that Super Mario Odyssey, which is only out for 4 days in October, was the top seller when it came to physical copies. Seeing as how it's one of the few games that Jim Sterling has deemed utterly outstanding, it's definitely a title that Nintendo should be boasting about.
EA continues to trip their way through the release of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and has temporarily removed all microtransactions from the game. EA stated in an update on their website, quote, "We hear you loud and clear, so we're turning off all in-game purchases. We will now spend more time listening, adjusting, balancing, and tuning. This means that the option to purchase crystals in the game is now offline, and all progression will be earned through gameplay," end quote. However, this is only temporary, as they went on to state, quote, "The ability to purchase crystals in-game will become available at a later date, only after we've made changes to the game," end quote. While it would be nice to say that we did it, that we convinced EA to change their stance on microtransactions in Battlefront 2, I don't think that's the case. According to VentureBeat, Disney had called EA and spoken to them only hours before microtransactions were removed, implying that Disney had at least some say in the decision. This also comes right after it was announced that Battlefront 2 was part of an investigation by Belgium's gambling authority to decide if loot boxes count as gambling, which could lead to the game receiving a higher age rating or even being banned from sale entirely in the country. This sounds more like EA trying to cover as many of its bases as it can, rather than a gesture of goodwill towards the gaming community. EA has constantly tried to backpedal and PR speak their way through this mess ever since it started, and it's important that we continue to keep a critical eye on EA in this situation, if we want to prevent this kind of thing from happening in more games in the future.
Weird niche anime and video game crossovers are not a rare sight anymore, but the upcoming A Certain Magical Virtual On has me a little confused. In an article by Siliconera covering the Japanese opening animation, they explain that Sega is hoping for fans to look at this as a reboot for their Virtual On franchise. The game supposedly has the same action combat as its predecessors, but changes things up by adding a new 4th weapon to the mechs where previous installments only had 3. The crossover itself, if you're unfamiliar with the Certain Magical part, is a reference to the anime A Certain Magical Index, which is about a small nun who has every magical codex in existence inside of her. As far as release, I wouldn't expect this to leave Japan anytime soon, as both Virtual On and A Certain Magical Index have only ever reached a cult status within the States. The game currently has a Japanese launch date of February 15th, 2018.
Just in time for the free-to-play weekend, the latest update for Overwatch went live yesterday. The hero Mercy received a few nerfs, with her resurrection ability getting a longer cast time as well as the ability to be interrupted during the cast time. Heroes Winston and Anna both got small buffs as well, with Winston's shield gaining a health bar and Anna doing slightly more damage with her rifle. More importantly, this update sees the release of the new support hero Moira. Most of her abilities seem to be dual purpose, as most can either heal allies or damage enemies depending on who she targets. While I haven't had a chance to try her out yet, more variety in the support class is always a welcome change to Overwatch. Make sure you check out the full list of changes before you head back into the fight.
The trailer for the upcoming movie adaptation of Atari's arcade classic Rampage released, and surprisingly, it doesn't look like complete trash. The plot seems to place The Rock as a soft-hearted, animal-loving guy who's distraught as his friend Gorilla George starts getting bigger and bigger after a freak accident. The two things that excite me most about this movie is that it's being directed by Brad Payton, who worked with The Rock on San Andreas, and also that the monsters don't look like complete, horrible CG messes. Rampage is out on April 20th, 2018, and only time will tell if this one breaks with tradition and becomes a great video game movie. Well, that's all the news we found interesting today. Feel free to share any awesome gaming news you may have missed in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next time.